I thought marrying Damien was the end of the struggle. I thought the games were over. But then I found the USB. It was in his study, back of the drawer, tucked inside an envelope with no label. I wasn't even looking for it. I was cleaning up after one of his wine nights. He'd had 3 glasses, left without saying a word. I figured he was just in one of his moods again. I should have left it alone. Elizabeth lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin, the windows jammed, and the heater worked when it felt like it. She paid rent late more often than not, and her landlord stopped calling. He'd just show up, knock twice, and leave a note under the door. She worked 3 jobs, none of them full-time. On weekdays, she cleaned offices downtown. Early mornings, before the staff came in, it paid just enough to cover groceries and a prepaid phone. 2 nights a week, she worked at a bar. She hated it, but the tips were cash, and she needed every dollar. Saturdays, she handed out flyers outside malls. Most people didn't take them. She still smiled and kept going. Her fridge was mostly empty. Eggs, bread, sometimes fruit. On good weeks, she bought coffee. She'd sit by the window before work and pretend the street noise was ocean waves. She didn't grow up poor. Her parents were gone, but they left her a little. That was long gone now. A few bad choices. A loan she thought she could flip into more. A friend who promised double and delivered nothing. There was no safety net, no family to call, no backup plan. One night, she got a text from Nadia. They hadn't spoken in 6 months. Nadia said she had an idea, said it was easy, said all Elizabeth had to do was dress nice, act right, and say nothing she couldn't explain. Elizabeth didn't ask questions. She needed money. She put on the best dress she owned and met Nadia at the hotel bar. That's where it started. Nadia introduced her to a man in a suit. He had a watch worth more than her rent. He said he was scouting faces for a private gala. Rich people, investors, quiet money. He handed her an invitation with her name already printed on it. She looked at Nadia. Nadia just smiled. The gala was the next night. Elizabeth borrowed shoes, redid her hair, and walked into the ballroom like she belonged there. That's where she saw Damien for the first time. He didn't look at her like the others did. He didn't smile. He just asked her name. She told him. He said he'd see her again. And he did. The building was a glass tower downtown. No signs, just black cars pulling up every few minutes. Elizabeth walked past the valet like she belonged there. The man at the door barely looked at the invitation. She kept moving. Inside, everything was polished. Quiet music. Laughter from behind champagne flutes. Waiters moved like they'd been trained for months. Every guest wore something expensive. She kept her coat on until she reached the bathroom, checked her reflection, adjusted the strap of her dress, and walked out like she had a reason to be there. Nadia was already inside, talking to a group near the fireplace. She nodded when she saw Elizabeth, but didn't wave. That was the rule. No drawing attention. Elizabeth stuck close to the edge of the room, waited for someone to talk first. They didn't. No one asked who she was or why she looked unfamiliar. They just assumed she was someone's guest or someone important's daughter. A woman with a clipboard walked past. Elizabeth caught the name on the folder. Donor list. She followed from a distance, watched her cross a few names off. Then she stopped in front of a man standing alone by the bar. She said, "Mr. Cross, the host will be here shortly." He nodded once and didn't say anything back. That was Damien. He wasn't drinking, just holding the glass, watching the room like it owed him something. A few people tried to speak with him. He smiled without showing teeth and didn't keep the conversation long. Elizabeth kept moving, got a drink she didn't touch, pretended to check her phone. Then she saw Nadia signal. 2 fingers, flicked twice toward the bar. She understood. Walk up, introduce yourself. She walked slowly, counted her steps, stopped just before reaching him. He looked at her before she spoke. She said, "Elizabeth." He didn't ask for a last name. He just repeated hers once and nodded. They didn't talk long. He asked where she was from. She said, "Out west." He didn't press. He asked what brought her to the gala. She said, "Friends." He glanced across the room and didn't ask who. She said, "And you?" He said, "I pay for it." She laughed once, and so did he. Then he asked if she wanted to see the view from the balcony. She followed. He pointed to the skyline, named buildings, talked about deals that happened in them, said most of the people inside were more interested in being seen than actually giving to charity. She said nothing. Then he said, "You're not like them." She didn't answer. He offered to call her a car. She said she could manage. He asked for her number instead. She gave it. He didn't text that night. He waited 3 days. Elizabeth didn't wait for Damien to follow up. She got to work. She opened a new browser window and typed in the words, "old money habits." Then, how heiresses talk. Then, how to sound rich without saying it. She clicked every link, watched videos, made notes, deleted her history after every session. She found interviews of women from families that owned newspapers, rail lines, insurance empires, studied the way they paused before speaking, how they didn't explain anything. The less they said, the more people listened. Elizabeth practiced answers out loud. Soft tone, short sentences, no details. She stopped walking fast. Started saying, "I can't eat that" instead of, "I don't like it." Swapped, "What do you do?" for, "Who do you know here?" If someone asked about her background, she said her family had property, didn't say where. If they pushed, she changed the topic. Clothes were harder. She had 3 dresses that looked expensive under soft lighting. 1 pair of heels that didn't match anything, but didn't stand out either. A friend of Nadia's loaned her a watch. It was real, the only real thing on her. The next time Damien called, he invited her to a dinner. Private club, no website, she said yes. The building had no sign, just a man in a gray suit who nodded when she said her name. She walked past a line of older men and women drinking from crystal and sat at a small table in the back. Damien was already there. No menu, just 2 glasses of wine and a dish she didn't recognize. He asked how her week was. She said quiet. He didn't push. He asked about her family. She said they traveled a lot. Again, he didn't push. He told her about a property deal in Milan. She nodded like she knew where that was. He talked about a friend's divorce, how expensive it was. She said nothing, just sipped and let him keep going. That night, he asked if she wanted to take a walk. They didn't go far, just around the corner, past closed shops and parked cars. He offered her his coat. She let him. He asked if she wanted to see his place sometime. She said, "If you want me to." He texted her the next morning, sent a car that night. The apartment wasn't an apartment. It was the top floor of a building she'd passed before but never looked up at. 2 levels, glass walls, art she couldn't name, a kitchen that looked unused. He poured her a drink, said he had a meeting in an hour. She asked why he invited her then. He said, "I wanted to see if you'd come." She stayed 30 minutes, left the drink half full, didn't ask for anything. He texted before she got home. 1 word, "Stay." She didn't reply. 2 days later, he sent a bracelet. No note, just a box and her name on the delivery slip. Elizabeth didn't wear it, but she kept it in view the next time he saw her. Elizabeth moved in without ever being asked. It started with a drawer, then a closet. One day, Damien called her driver instead of hers. That was it. The mansion was outside the city, behind 2 gates. Staff came and left at set hours. Groceries were delivered. Cleaning was handled. Elizabeth didn't see anyone twice in a row. Nobody stayed long enough to talk. Damien worked from home, mostly in his office on the 2nd floor. The door was always open, except on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday from 2 to 5, he took calls. That door stayed shut. She heard him once, not clearly, just enough to catch pieces. Another language, short words, no laughter, then silence, always the same routine. Call, silence, then whine. She asked him once what language it was. He said, "Business, Eastern Europe, you wouldn't know it." She left it alone. There was another room, far end of the hall. No windows, no name on the door. She'd seen staff go near it, but never inside. One day she asked the cleaner what it was. The woman looked confused, said she didn't know, said she never touched that side of the house. Elizabeth waited until Damien left for a dinner meeting. He said he'd be back late. She checked the cameras. He showed her how to use the app once. She watched the car pull out, waited 10 minutes, walked down the hall. The door was locked. No keypad, no handle, just a small fingerprint scanner beside the frame. She touched it. Nothing happened. She went back to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, poured a drink, sat at the counter and didn't touch it. That night, Damien came back early, said the dinner was moved. She nodded. Later, he asked if she'd gone upstairs. She said no. He smiled, then asked what she did all evening. She said she read. He asked what book. She lied. He didn't blink, just nodded again. That was the first time she noticed his watch had 2 time zones. Neither of them was set to hers. Elizabeth was in the kitchen, scrolling through a recipe she'd never make, when her phone buzzed. The message was from Nadia, just 5 words. "He's mine now. Good luck." She stared at the screen, checked the number twice. It wasn't a mistake. Same contact photo, same spelling, same Nadia. She called, no answer, texted back, delivered, no reply. She opened her gallery, scrolled up to old screenshots, a dinner, a wine bottle, a shot of Damien walking ahead of her in that gray coat. All taken by Nadia, all sent without being asked. Elizabeth called again. Nothing. She opened Instagram. Nadia's account was private. It hadn't been before. Her profile picture was new. A selfie in a gold elevator. Same design as the one in Damien's building downtown. She checked Damien's calendar. Nothing unusual. He told her he had a meeting that night. No location, just a dinner. She waited. He came home close to midnight. No tie, no explanation. He asked if she'd eaten. She said yes. She asked if he saw anyone. He said, board members. She didn't ask which ones. The next day, she went to the city. Said she was visiting a gallery. He didn't ask which. She called Nadia from a payphone outside the train station. It rang twice, then stopped. Straight to voicemail after that. She waited outside Nadia's building. 5 hours, nothing. Just before dark, she saw her. New bag, new shoes, phone in hand. Elizabeth didn't speak. She just walked up. Nadia didn't act surprised. She said, "You had your chance." Elizabeth asked how long. Nadia said, "Long enough." She reached for the door. Elizabeth blocked her. Nadia said, "You were never supposed to stay." Then walked inside. Elizabeth didn't follow. She went back home. Damien was in the study. He asked if she bought anything. She said no. He asked if she saw anyone. She said, "Just old friends." He didn't look up from his laptop. The next morning, her toothbrush was gone. It started with the printer. Elizabeth wasn't looking for anything. The paper jammed while she was printing a fake receipt to cover an online purchase. She opened the bottom tray, pulled out a crushed sheet, and noticed something behind the stack. A folder with no label, black, thin, sealed with a clip. She opened it. Inside were 4 photos, all the same man, Damien, but not Damien. Different hair, shorter, no beard, same eyes. In one photo, he stood beside a dark car with foreign plates. In another, he held a glass of champagne next to 2 people Elizabeth didn't recognize. In the third, he was wearing a uniform, not military, something else, no name tag. The 4th photo was a scan of a passport. Not British, not American. She looked at the name. It wasn't Damien Cross. It was Anton Varsek, issued in a country she had never heard of. The birth date was off by 4 years. The face was identical. She took the folder to her room, scanned each page on her phone, then returned it to the printer tray. That night, Damien came home late again. Said there was a flight next week, Business. Eastern Europe. She asked if she should pack. He said, "No need, just 3 days." She asked which city. He said, "A small one, nothing to see." She didn't reply. The next morning, she searched Anton Varsek. No matches, no LinkedIn, no old news. She added passport, photo, ID. Still nothing. Then she tried something else. She uploaded the passport photo to a facial recognition site for lost persons. It flagged one match, not Damien, not Anton, a man named Pavel. Same face, reported missing 9 years ago. Last seen crossing a private airport runway. Investigation closed, no body found. Elizabeth saved the link, sent it to a burner email she used for receipts. She closed the tab, then cleared her history. The next night, she asked Damien how he got into business. He smiled. Family money, oil, some shipping. She asked where his family lived. He said, "Mostly gone now, just me." She nodded. He asked why she wanted to know. She said, "I was just curious." He looked at her for a second too long, then said, "I'm glad you asked." It was a Thursday. Elizabeth was in the garden, pretending to check the roses, when Damien walked out holding a small box. No speech, no build-up. Just opened it and said, "Let's not wait." She nodded. There was no ring-size check, no guessing. It fit perfectly. He said he had people who handled things like that. She didn't ask what kind of people. The wedding was set for 2 months out. Small, private island. Only those who mattered. Damien said he didn't want media attention. She agreed. A week later, a man in a suit delivered an envelope. Thick paper, legal tabs, the prenup. Elizabeth wasn't surprised. Damien said it was just protocol. He wanted to protect his companies. His lawyers had already signed. Hers needed to review and sign before the week ended. She took it to her old contact, Tariq, a freelance legal consultant who used to help her fake resumes. He opened the file, checked the pages, then paused. He asked, "Did he sign this in front of a witness?" She said, "He said he did." Tariq frowned, said the signature didn't match. He pulled up old records, company documents, a charity auction check, a scanned NDA from 6 years ago, 3 different signatures. None of them like this one. He said, "This looks like it was copied." Elizabeth asked what that meant. He said, "It means he didn't sign it. Someone else did, or it's a stamp." She said, "Why would he fake his own prenup?" Tariq said, "Ask him." She didn't. Instead, she waited for Damien to leave for his regular Tuesday meeting. She pulled up the original document from the email his assistant had sent, downloaded the digital signature metadata, checked the certificate. It had been applied 2 minutes after the file was created. No IP trail, no author name. She called the notary listed at the bottom of the document. Disconnected. She checked the law firm letterhead. Fake. The address didn't exist. The phone number led to an overseas voicemail. She sent a blank message to the email listed on the last page. It bounced. That night, Damien came home early. No warning. He kissed her on the forehead and said, "Just a few more weeks." Then added, "Don't stress about the paperwork. My lawyers are thorough." She didn't say a word. She went to bed, pretended to sleep. At 2:34 a.m., she woke up to the printer running downstairs. Elizabeth took the test out of the box, wet the strip, and waited. It was blank. She tossed it, opened the drawer, and took out another one. Did the same. Let it dry, snapped a picture before the result could show. She opened her editing app, tilted the photo, shifted the contrast, added a faint line next to the control. She saved it, added a timestamp, then emailed it to herself with the subject line, "This changes everything." That night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked. Damien always passed through the kitchen before bed. He saw the email. She could tell by the shift in his schedule the next day. He canceled 2 meetings. He came home early. He didn't ask. He waited for her to bring it up. She didn't. Not until dinner. She said, "I think we should talk." He said, "I saw it." She paused, then nodded. He asked, "When did you find out?" She lied. 3 days ago. He asked, "Why didn't you tell me right away?" She said, "I wasn't sure you'd want this." He stood up, poured wine, then said, "We'll adjust." She asked, "Are you angry?" He said, "No, just focused." No questions about doctors, no mention of names. He didn't ask for proof. The next morning, a doctor's appointment was booked. Private clinic, no listed address. Transport arranged by his team. She canceled it, said she wasn't feeling well. He didn't push. That night, she searched online for ways to fake ultrasound images. She found 5 services, all untraceable. She bought one, sent her name. They replied in 5 minutes, said it would be ready by morning. When Damien returned home, he handed her a folder. Bank documents, trust funds, 2 million already allocated, held in escrow, for the child. She didn't open it. He said, "This changes our timeline." She nodded. He said, "I'll have to involve some people." She didn't ask which ones. That weekend, the safe in the study was changed. New code, different lock. She checked his browser history. All wiped, except one tab left open. It was a property listing in Montenegro, offshore, remote, no roads, just a helipad and a single runway. Helena had been there since the 2nd week. Quiet, polite, no questions. She never knocked twice, never lingered. She folded clothes without creases, made tea without asking. Damien called her family, said she was with his mother before she passed. Elizabeth never looked at her twice, until the morning she dropped her scarf behind the dryer and reached for it. Her hand touched something smooth, plastic, square. She pulled out a tiny black box, the kind sold online in bulk. Hidden camera, USB storage, no light, just a hole for audio. She put it in her pocket, didn't say anything. That night, after Damien left, she plugged it into her laptop. 3 folders, each named by date, hundreds of audio clips. She played one. It was her voice, talking on the phone, discussing the fake ultrasound, discussing Tariq, discussing the forged prenup. She played another, her in the bathroom, on a call, whispering. She hit pause, then rewind, then clicked on a file dated last week. Damien's voice saying, "Don't worry, she'll sign it." Then Helena's voice, clear, calm. "She's slipping, she thinks she's winning." Elizabeth closed the laptop. She walked down the hall, stepped into the laundry room, opened the cabinet above the sink. 2 more devices, one behind the detergent, another taped to the bottom of the shelf. She went room by room, bedroom, closet, guest room, 10 devices total, all active. She unplugged them, all of them, then took the main unit she found behind a false outlet and smashed it. Helena walked in, hands empty. She looked at the broken plastic, then said, "You weren't supposed to find that yet." Elizabeth said nothing. Helena stepped forward, pulled out her phone, typed something, hit send, then said, "You should pack." Elizabeth asked, "For what?" Helena said, "He knows you're not pregnant." Then she turned, walked out the door and left it open. Elizabeth printed every photo, full color, thick paper, one after another spread across the table in the study. Damien's face, a different name, a new passport, stamped documents, immigration records, offshore entries, private islands, bank accounts under names no one had ever mentioned. She waited for him to come home. He walked in, looked at the table, didn't say anything. She said, "I know who you are." He stayed silent. She added, "And I know what you're running from." Still nothing. She picked up one sheet, held it out. "This is Singapore. You were there 3 months before your mother died." Then another. This is Uruguay. You paid cash for land in the jungle. No permits, no structures, just fencing. She placed a final paper down. And this is from the embassy. You were declared dead 5 years ago. He sat, then said, "What do you want?" She replied, 50%, no prenup. I stay quiet. You keep your other name. He nodded slowly. She said, "You'll announce the marriage? Public? Legal? Real? And you'll keep your promise to Helena out of it?" He raised an eyebrow. She added, "Yes, I know she works for someone else." He said, "Who?" She didn't answer. He looked at the wall, then said, "I'll make the call." She nodded. 3 hours later, the press release went out. High-profile engagement, date set, private island venue, exclusive guest list, photos taken, rings exchanged in front of a photographer flown in from Milan. Elizabeth smiled at the camera. The photos trended within the hour. Articles spun out. Comments flooded in. She was called lucky, beautiful, the mystery heiress, the woman who tamed Damien Cross. That night he handed her a contract, not the prenup, a corporate agreement, shared assets, holdings, joint signatures. She signed it. He poured drinks. She toasted, then excused herself, locked the bedroom door, opened the closet, pulled out the envelope she hadn't shown him, the one with the real birth certificate, and the photo of Damien, standing next to a coffin labeled under yet another name. This time, not his. This time it was someone else, someone missing, someone still listed on Interpol. The cell was small, cold floor, a thin bench along the wall. Elizabeth sat with her hands in her lap. No clock, just the sound of keys turning and steel sliding open. A guard said her name. She stood. They led her to the visitor room, glass between them, phones on either side. She picked up hers. The woman on the other end had sharp cheekbones and hair tied tight, expensive coat, quiet confidence, no smile. She said, "You think you scammed him?" Elizabeth didn't answer. The woman leaned forward. "He's done worse." Elizabeth stared. The woman continued, "He didn't always go by Damien. When I met him, he was Nicholas Laird, ran a hedge fund out of Boston, clean records, real estate, oil, biotech. I thought I was the first." She reached into her bag, pulled out a folder, held it against the glass. Inside, photos, old ones. Her with Damien, wedding, yacht trip, hospital room, a child. She said, "He disappeared 3 weeks after our son was born. Transferred everything, vanished, left the baby with me." Then the audits started. Fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. She slid the folder into the deposit tray. "I spent 2 years cleaning up his mess. But you—" She pointed at Elizabeth. "You're not a victim. You lied too. That's why you're here." Elizabeth opened the folder, looked at the bank statements, government letters, arrest warrants, offshore accounts, all the same names, all the same dates. She asked, "Why now?" The woman said, "Because I thought I buried him, and then your little engagement story showed up." She paused. "Funny thing is, you almost had him, but he's careful now, doesn't let anyone win." Elizabeth asked, "What do you want from me?" The woman leaned in. "I want him back," Elizabeth said. "Then help me get out." The woman smiled. "You're smarter than the last one." She stood, then added, "If you're serious, check the USB, not the one you found, the one under the piano." She walked away without looking back. The guard called her name again. Elizabeth sat still, then picked up the folder and followed. The court clerk read the papers out loud. Charges dropped, all of them, no explanation given. Elizabeth stood in front of the judge. Her lawyer didn't speak, just nodded. The bailiff opened the side door and motioned for her to leave. No press, no statement, just silence. Outside, a black car waited. Not hers. She didn't ask questions. The driver said nothing. Just drove. 10 minutes later, the car stopped behind a gray building near the docks. Empty warehouse. One camera above the side door. She walked in. a table, a man in a coat, not police, not legal, just clean cut, with a folder. He placed it in front of her and said, "He used you." Inside, photos, dozens, men in suits, Damien with politicians, business contracts, investment scams, offshore accounts traced back to him. None in his name, all in others, one in hers. The man said, "You were one of 5, all women, same setup." He'd wind them, give them access, run assets through their names. When it collapsed, they took the fall. He disappeared. Elizabeth flipped through. There was Claire, his executive assistant. Another photo showed Damien at a party in Monaco with a woman named Sophia. 3 months apart, same pattern. The man handed her another envelope. "Classified witness status. You've been cleared, but you'll be watched." "He's not done." She asked, "Why release me?" He said, "Because you were just part of the script." She didn't reply. He added, "He's been doing this for over a decade. You're not the first to fake a life. You're just the first who actually meant to stay." Elizabeth closed the folder. Back in the car, the driver turned to her and asked where to. She looked out the window, then said, "I need a piano." The footage started with Damien walking into a private lounge. Time-stamped 2 years ago. No sound, just grainy video. He sat across from a woman, her hair tied back, sunglasses on the table. She passed him an envelope. He slid it aside and handed her a flash drive. Next clip, different city, different girl, a hotel suite. Damien showing her bank records, walking her through a setup. She signed a paper, then they clinked glasses. All smiles. The camera was hidden in a clock. Elizabeth fast-forwarded. Next file, a girl crying, same room. Damien didn't comfort her. He just opened a laptop, typed something, and left. Another file. A hidden camera on a boat. Damien speaking clearly now. This one had audio. He said, "Your name goes on the contract. I handle the logistics. If anyone asks, you're the investor. You're protected, unless you talk." The woman asked, "And if it falls apart?" He shrugged. "Then you play dumb. You're just the face. The government doesn't chase the face. They chase the paper trail, which I control." File after file. Names, flights, accounts opened, property bought and sold, in someone else's name. Mostly women. All disposable. One folder had her name, Elizabeth Moreau. Same structure. Investment scheme routed through her. A villa in Greece purchased under her ID. She had never been to Greece. Another clip, Helena, the maid, sitting in front of a laptop, speaking into a mic. Subject's phone cloned. All calls routed. Cross still hasn't used the safe. Waiting on green light. Next file, a meeting. Damien with 3 men, one in uniform, talking about timing, a contract exchange. It wasn't just romance scams. It was full-scale identity fraud. Coordinated, tested, repeated. In the last clip, Damien sat alone, staring into a webcam, like a confession. He said, "They always want something. You just have to figure out what. Love, money, revenge. It doesn't matter, give it to them. Then take everything else." Elizabeth paused the video, the screen frozen on his face, still smiling. She pulled the USB out, looked at it, tossed it onto the table, then opened her phone. She dialed a number and said, "I'm ready." It was just past 4 a.m. when Elizabeth slipped into the back of the black sedan parked outside the safe house. No words. The driver nodded, pulled off. A straight line through the city's outskirts, barely any traffic. They reached the fence in under 30 minutes. The airstrip sat just beyond a grove of trees. No tower, no lights, only a hangar and a wide runway. An old Cessna idled near the edge, its propellers slowly turning. 2 men in cargo jackets stood by the wing. One of them was Damien. Elizabeth stepped out before the car fully stopped. She walked past the fence, through a break in the chain, then across the loose gravel toward the plane. No rush, just steps. Damien turned before she called his name. They stood maybe 30 feet apart. She said nothing. He looked at her, straight-faced. No surprise, no smirk. He said, "You really want this to end here?" She took one more step, pulled something from her coat pocket. The USB. Held it up. He didn't flinch, didn't look at it. He asked, "Do you even know who you're helping?" She replied, "I know what you did." He looked toward the plane, then back to her. "You know half of it. That's worse than knowing nothing." One of the men called out, "We need to go." Damien nodded without looking at him. He said to Elizabeth, "You could have come with me?" She said, "You were never going anywhere." He started backing away toward the wing, still holding her gaze. "Next time," he said, "don't play a game you don't understand." She watched him climb the stairs, one step at a time. The door closed behind him. The engines roared. The plane moved fast, lifted off in seconds. Elizabeth didn't chase it, didn't call anyone, just stood there, USB still in hand. By the time the sun came up, she was gone. The flight log wasn't erased. That's how they found the island. Unregistered. No country name, no legal flag. Damien's new home, buried in the Pacific, 3,000 miles from the coast. Elizabeth didn't go through police. She knew better. The USB had enough footage to put him away, but that wasn't her move. She needed to know what came next. Who else was part of it? Who helped him run? She met with a man named Victor, former contractor, expelled from 2 firms. He watched the clips in silence, recognized 3 faces Damien had recruited. 2 were dead, 1 was missing. They followed bank records, offshore wires, unusual timing, always sent after someone vanished. Victor linked it to a Cayman account under a woman's name, Renata Velez. No photo, just a trace. Renata used to be Stephanie Cross, Damien's sister. Elizabeth booked a boat through a fishing broker. No paperwork, no names. 3 days at sea. They reached the island by night. No guards, no cameras, just a long pier and a single bungalow lit from inside. She walked alone. The wood planks creaked. She passed a row of crates stacked to the side, each one stamped with numbers, no words. She entered the house without knocking. Inside, a long table, dinner half-eaten, documents spread across the far end. Damien sat at the head. He looked up, calm. "You found me," he said. She didn't answer. He pulled out a chair. "Sit." She didn't move. He said, "What now? You gonna drag me back?" She walked to the table, tossed down the USB. "You used every one of them." He leaned back. "And they used me." She said, "You built this from lies." He said, "I built this from nothing. That's the difference." He reached for a folder on the table, opened it. Inside were pictures, not of her, of other women, older ones, different names, handwritten notes, matching timelines, all of them tied to him. He said, "You think this ends with me?" She didn't take the folder. He pushed it closer. "I was just the beginning." The wind outside picked up. The house creaked. Somewhere near the dock, something metal fell. Elizabeth looked at the folder again. Then she left. She didn't look back. She went back to the mainland with nothing in her hands but the folder Damien gave her. The files were exact. Names, bank records, hotels. Every one of them led to someone who disappeared after crossing paths with him. Some were lovers, some were enemies, some were neither. The authorities didn't want the full story. They took the USB, filed it under evidence, and told her they'd follow up. She knew they wouldn't. Damien had cleaned up too well. Or maybe someone on the inside was already bought. Elizabeth sat on the beach 3 days later, miles from the city, with no phone, no plan. She looked through the folder again. On the last page, taped under one of the files, was a photo. A girl, maybe 17. Her name scribbled in red, Kira. No surname, no location, just the date, April 3rd. That was 2 weeks from now. She searched the name online. One mention in an old community blog. Foster system. Bounced around. No legal guardian. She asked herself, was this another con or a warning? Victor found her again. Showed up without a call. He said, "You've got options. You disappear too. We can scrub your name. I know people." She asked, "And then what?" He shrugged. "You live." She held the photo in both hands. No answer came. Later that night, she looked through the USB again. There were folders Damien didn't mention, encrypted. One had a password she guessed in 3 tries. Inside were contracts, not just with women, but with companies, names she'd seen in headlines. One of them had funded the charity gala she snuck into. Another ran private security for offshore holdings. Every deal looked clean, until she found the insurance clauses. If someone died under contract, the payout went to Damien. She stopped reading. She thought about walking away, about burning the folder, erasing her trail. She thought about staying quiet. Then she wrote a name on a paper napkin. Kira, just 5 letters. She folded it and made the call. She stares at the lens. No makeup, no lighting crew, no filter. Just a webcam, grainy, static in the background. A single desk lamp beside her. The frame holds tight on her face. Elizabeth clicks record. There's a pause. She doesn't rehearse, just speaks. "He said I played him, that I used him, but let's be honest. He found me broke, lying, in a dress that wasn't mine, using a name I made up on the spot. And he let me in. Why? Because he already knew I'd take the bait." She leans forward, arms crossed on the table. He knew exactly what he was doing. The way he tracked every move, the documents he let me find, even the prenup. He forged it. Not to protect himself. To test me. Her eyes shift left for a moment, like she's waiting for someone to burst in. No one does. And when I blackmailed him, he didn't panic. He laughed, told me I was ready. She pauses again, this time longer, then starts clicking her mouse. A folder opens, screenshots, video clips, transaction logs. He used me, but I used him too. I learned, I watched. I figured out how he picked his targets, how he spoke, how he made people believe they were special. Every move I made after that, I copied straight from him. Another click. She opens an audio file, a short clip of Damien's voice. She's good, better than the others, maybe even better than me. You tell me, was I worse? She leans back. Or was I just better? She doesn't smile, doesn't blink. She just points down directly at the comment section. Comment below, I really want to know. This wraps up the story. If you followed through till the end, kindly like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories. Thank you.